Ladies and gentlemen, can I have your attention? I've arranged this little gathering so you can meet Piers Frobisher, who has tremendous fundraising experience. He'll help us organize the event. Klinsky's should play its part in charitable events. Piers Frobisher says it'll do us no harm at all, image-wise.
So you intend to feed the starving on Dutch paintings of dead game birds and French clocks?
Shut up. It sounds like a perfectly reasonable idea to me.
Drop old English watercolours on them by parachute.
We'll be feeding them, Grace, yeah? On the proceeds of art. It's a perfectly saleable commodity. Piers, there you are. This is Piers Frobisher, who does PR work for Feeding the Multitude, a charity we're working closely with on this one. Now, who don't you know? Maggie Perrone, head of Old Masters.
How do you do?
Maggie.
Camilla Mounsey, head of Modern British Painting.
Hello, Piers.
Otherwise known as Old Mistresses.
Ben Glazier, probably our oldest art expert. We're trying to persuade him to take a charitable view of life. Harry Lomax, antiquarian books, herbals.
Harry.
Anything I can do to help. Not that I suppose there is much scope for planting medieval herb gardens in the middle of the desert.
It's a fascinating idea. I think I've met everyone else at the Sheridan Club at one time or another.
Hello, Piers.
Great place for making contacts.
Yeah. Of course, charity suffers long and has to make contacts.
It's always who you know who's still got the money.
And charity does pretty well nowadays, does it?
I'd be much better off in your line of business, I'm sure.
Really, art pays better than charity.
That's quite enough of that, Glazier. Of course, we expect to pay Piers Frobisher Limited a reasonable fee for their expertise. Now, if I could have everyone's attention. I hope we're all going to be working together on what I have persuaded our marketing people to call the Great Klinsky Bring and Buy.
Why not cash and carry?
God's sake.
This charity auction will raise the public profile of Klinsky's considerably, Piers. I'm sure you'll agree with me about that.
Oh, I do indeed.
Charity raises the public profile.
Of course, raise substantial and, I am sure, welcome aid for the people of,
Naranga.
Yes, indeed. If there are no questions...
We've always found the trouble with these charity tours has been...
Yes, Glazier.
That people who dump the most ghastly objects in the poor and starving, things they've kept in the attic and never liked the look of in the first place anyway. Dubious family portraits, reproduction Chippendales. You're inclined to give them the most terrible rubbish.
Well, that'll be your job, Glazier. And all heads of department, check every entry with extreme care. We're not having any rubbish in our charity event.
Yes.
You really think so?
It's such a great image, Ned. One of your most significant, I'd say. Such a great technique you discovered.
Yeah, well, it feels free. Well, to me, you're telling right.
Putting the air through it the way you did kind of freed it.
Yeah, well, you see, I watched you drying your hair, and I saw your hair being blown while you were drying it, and that's how I got the idea.
So I participated?
Well, yes, of course. You always participate in everything I do. I couldn't do anything without you. Well, at least we've got away from the history of art. We broke the mould. Got rid of all that dreary old luggage off our backs. Don't you think so?
It's wonderful work, this.
Isn't it exquisite?
Who's the artist?
It's a Hardcastle, isn't it?
Edward Hardcastle went to the Royal Academy schools. Pestered me with questions when I went to lecture there. Boring little man who painted boring little pictures. I mean, those lemons look far too like lemons to be in the least convincing.
He was a wonderful artist. It's a great following. That'll go for at least 30,000 at a charity auction.
He's always been strangely fashionable, bought by people who thought they ought to buy pictures but never really liked them.
Well, it appeals to me at any rate. Did you say he was a wonderful artist, Camilla?
Tragic. Died about 10 years ago. I don't think he was much over 40.
And we've got instructions to auction it.
That's right, it's just come in.
Tell you what, I'll buy it. Personally. Just before the sale. I'll give the owner a fair price. Put it in our bring and buy. All profits to go to feed the starving. What do you think of that, Camilla?
I think it's extraordinarily generous and quite typical of you, Bernard.
Oh, that's your first PR job then, Piers. Plinsky's chairman plans contribution to charity by purchasing English masterpiece with his own money. Get reproductions of that in all the supplements. And work out how much porridge it'll pay for. Or whatever it is they eat in...
Naranga.
Naranga.
Oh, gorgeous.
You're leaning on the crack. All the tacky old bits of rubbish people have thrown out of their attics. Still, I suppose that's rather appropriate, really.
God, you're beautiful when you're getting cross. Nothing sexy. Well, I better go and see if anybody's left any decent wine.
It's rather large.
Well, I found a new way of working. Now, you won't believe it.
Oh, really?
Pandora, that's what I call this image. You know, she was the one who kept the winds in a box with air. Do you realise what's the biggest creative power in the universe? What's carved out mountains? What's put up those great sculptures? Sand dunes in the desert? The winds, for God's sake.
Terribly interesting, of course.
You really think it's that bad?
Oh, of course it's not bad. It's probably terribly good. It's kind. It just might not be exactly what the big givers are really looking for. They're asking them to dig deep in their pockets. Besides which, people have such small walls nowadays.
All I want to do is help some of those children that I saw on television, bloody hell.
I'm sure we'd welcome a donation on your way out.
Thank you very much. Come on, Pandora, out of this frigging mausoleum. Better off in the fresh air where you belong.
How very interesting.
Oh, yes. The dead hand of art history.
You don't like it?
Well, I mean, look at it. It's Royal Academy chocolate box. It should be flushed down the toilet with all the other bloody Gainsboroughs and Canalettos that you got taking up space on your walls.
You have a bit of a job flushing a Canaletto down the toilet. I don't think it's ever been tried.
No, I mean, look at it. Just look at it. It's a dead picture painted by a dead hand.
Well, that makes sense. The artist is dead.
Well, we're lucky then. They won't be able to paint any more of those. I've got to get Pandora home.
Pandora?
Yeah, you know, the girl who kept the winds in a box. There's too much fresh air in her for you lot.
Poor fellow. You'll have to go on living with Pandora. I remember once I made up a little poem. The artist and the artist's wife, they live a horrid, haunted life, surrounded by the things he'd made, which weren't wanted by the trade. Now, just why are you so interested in this picture, Harry?
Well, didn't Camilla say that the artist had died about 10 years ago?
As far as I remember.
Yes, well, that's it. You see, it is the Jolly Joker.
Doesn't seem a load of laughs to me.
No. Jolly Joker, that's the name of the pansies going in the pot. One of the Order de Villacier, but it's a new one. Yeah, well, you see, it's got 3 lower petals and 2 upper petals. The 3 lower petals are a bright orange and the upper 2 are a bright purple.
Well, I can see that.
I suppose that's what makes it look like a jester. It is quite amazing the things they do with plants nowadays.
Nowadays?
Well, I know I deal in antique herbals and garden books, but I do try to keep up with the times. The Jolly Joker wasn't bred until 4 years ago.
Quite sure about that?
I'm quite sure.
Couldn't even give it away.
I'm sorry. You must feel rejected.
Rejected? Listen, it's my privilege to be rejected by those Philistines. All they want is some woman with a bowl of pansies looking as though she's been carved out of soap. Would you give me a hand with this, please? They don't want anything made by the elements, the forces of nature.
I know how it feels.
Paint controlled by Boreas, the west wind.
I'm always going up for parts. This isn't my real job, not sitting here taking in these bits and pieces of charity. I'm an actress, really, and there's not much charity in the acting profession.
Small walls. I mean, what a thing to say. Small minds. Small ambitions.
Up for parts. Your face aches from all that smiling. Smiling when you walk in, smile when they look you up and down. Smile when they ask you to read some load of rubbish. Smile when they say they'll let you know, but never do.
Why should I care? I've got a show coming up very soon.
I've got a part in the Baptist Head in Dalston. Not actually a part with lines or anything. I'm on the stage most of the time, though. I've got a leaflet, if ever you're in Dalston. Tells you about the first night.
Right. Well, look, if you can make my show.
I'm Lucy Starr, by the way. My name's Starr. I'm trying to live up to it.
I'm Ned Nonnelly. Right, well, the best of luck.
Can I help?
I want to see a person in charge.
Well, what have you got? Yes, you better leave that on that table over there. That's where the primitive stuff is being looked through.
This is not primitive.
Yeah, I'd say it's rather beautiful and quite sophisticated.
Good, you understand. You're a person in charge.
One of many.
Name, please.
Glazier, Ben Glazier.
Thank you, Mr. Glazier. I remember to ask for you when I come again.
Extraordinary person.
Not that extraordinary. And I wanted to ask you about the Hardcastle.
Marvellous, isn't it? Bernard just showed me this.
It's amazing. Art's such a little whore. Bestows her favours on the most unlikely people about the picture.
I hope you've seen now just how sensitive Bernard really is. He's
Remind me again, when exactly did Hardcastle die?
10 years ago. I checked it for the catalogue. A place called Shenstone-on-Sea. He left a widow, no children. Terrible loss.
Yes, I'm sure. Thanks very much. It can't be right.
You're going to tell Bernard Holloway that? He'll have a fit. Klinsky's buys British. You mean Klinsky's buys a British fake?
I suppose there's no real need to tell him.
Ben!
Well, I mean, he's paid good money that's going to the starving of Naranga. He'd be taking the food back out of their mouths.
What are you saying? That we're having a charity auction full of forgeries?
Full of just one little fake, perhaps. I mean, Hardcastle was a bit of a figure. He only did his own paintings.
If it's a fake, then we must withdraw it from the sale. It's only right.
You've got such a highly developed sense of morality.
I do when it comes to pictures.
Now, when it comes to young men, I hope to God your bent old Etonian Nick Roper's not been up to his tricks again.
If he has, they're confined to the wine department. That's all over. Completely.
So, what are we going to do about this possibly bent picture?
Harry Lomax might be wrong.
Harry Lomax calls all plants by their Latin name. He's never gets wrong about anything.
Anyway, what to find out?
What do you suggest?
We investigate?
Well, we better not tell Camilla. It's in her department.
She'll never dig out the truth. Oh, for God's sake, Ben, we've done it before. Then if it really is a fake, we'll have to tell Holloway.
Well, you'll have to tell Holloway. You're the one with the highly developed moral sense. I could find out who put it in here for sale. Anyway, I could try.
Good night. Can't wait. Rehearsals. I say, you will come to my first night at the Baptist Head in Dalston, won't you? I'm on stage for ever so long. Do say you'll come.
Well, I'll try.
I'll save you a seat.
Arsenal!
Oh, it's you.
Now, look here, old girl. You can't go on treating me like a faked Rembrandt etching or some such bloody nonsense.
Can't I? Isn't that exactly what you are? Not a Rembrandt, of course. A very minor fake.
Oh, forgive and forget. Come to dinner. San Lorenzo, like we used to.
Once on your birthday. My treat, as I remember.
Mine this time. What do you say?
My mother's come to stay. She's at the flat doing home cooking, boiling the cabbage into submission. Besides which, you behave like a complete bastard. Taxi! And what's more, I'm not having her meet you, Nick. She disapproves of my London life quite enough already. If she met you, she'd have me taken into care. Oh.
However much did you pay for that?
Pay for what, Mum?
That woman looks as though she were made out of Meccano or something. However much did you pay for it?
The one Gree. Well, it's only a drawing. Signed. I honestly can't remember how much I paid for it.
Too much, I'm sure, for something like that.
Look, at work, we have to think of the price of everything. At home, I try and forget.
Modern art, I suppose. The things they think look pretty nowadays.
Well, it's not all that modern, Mum. It's 1920, before you were born.
No, before I was born, I don't suppose they had women who looked as though they were made out of Meccano. I'm sure your gran never
How
looked
about
as though...
a glass of white wine? I'm going to have one.
No, thank you, dear. I don't want to be drinking at all hours. Anyway, the meal will be ready directly. Do you know how much I had to pay for that little bit of beef, do you? Can you guess?
No, Mum. Go on. Astonish me.
£12. £12, I ask you. I don't know how they have the nerve to do it. I said to that young man in the butcher's you think so highly of, I said, that bit of beef would go for just half the price in Salford. Do you know what he had the nerve to tell me? This isn't Salford, madam. That's what he told me. Too right it isn't, I said. And I was tempted to add, and more's the pity. Well, I'll just take the weight off my feet for a minute, and then I'll go and pay my respects to that little scrap of beef that cost a fortune.
I'll go.
No, I'll do it. That's what mothers are for, aren't they? Funny thing, you've never got it really homey in here, have you, dear?
It's my home, more or less how I like it.
I think it's that splash of colour I miss in your furnishings. Now, Linda and her Barry, well, he's just been made up to area manager, and as I say, they've just got this lovely, warm, red velvet three-piece suite with gold trimming, which was quite a bargain. And as Barry says, it's warming up the room, gives it that really homey appearance. I suppose it's what you picked up in art college, all these cold colours. Well, they weren't great ones for having homes, were they? Not artists. Oh, please, put that out, Maggie. You don't want me to have to sue you for passive smoking now, do you? That'd really get our name in the papers.
Sorry, Mum. That's got some pretty warm colours in it, don't you think?
Oh, peculiar colour for a woman. Who does she think she is, anyway? She's certainly no oil painting.
As a matter of fact, that's exactly what she is.
Who's that? You're not expecting company, are you?
Go away.
Such a pity. I've never met your mum.
Who is it, dear?
I said go away.
Maggie? Who is it?
You must be Mum. Of course. Now I know where Maggie gets her good looks. Maggie, why didn't you tell me your mum was such a stunner?
I don't believe this is happening.
Bought a couple of bottles of Bolly to help wash down the home cooking.
Oh, that's very nice indeed. I don't believe we've had that since Linda's wedding. Well, that's very kind of you, Mr. I don't believe we've been formally introduced.
I'm Nick Roper, one of Maggie's closest colleagues. You mean she never told you she'd asked me to dinner?
No, for God's sake, what do you think you're doing? There's not enough beef, is there, Mum?
Oh, I think we can eke it out. FHB, as Maggie's father always used to say. Family hold back.
Castle? Oh, yes, his pictures are quite a cult these days, aren't they? We had an exhibition last year.
And you brought one of them in for auction.
The one that Plinsky's paid for with his own money. What's happened, Ben? Has your chairman undergone some sort of religious conversion?
To charity, yes. So watch out. He might be sending you food parcels. But can you tell me, Roy?
I don't know. You can ask.
Was it your picture? I mean, did you own it, or were you acting as an agent for the alleged owner?
Alleged? What do you mean by alleged?
Right, the owner then.
You don't honestly think I'm going to tell you that, do you? When I act as an agent, the whole matter is entirely confidential.
So you were acting as an agent then? An agent for the person who brought the picture to you, another gallery, a friend of this dead artist, a relative perhaps?
Well, I don't know. Were there any relatives? Well, I believe there may have been a wife somewhere. Didn't she feature in some of the paintings?
Is she the one in the picture we bought, the woman with the bowl of flowers?
Don't ask me then. From now on, my lips are sealed.
Mr. Glazer. I don't think you've ever met Christopher Umtaten, Foreign Secretary of the country you're helping so much.
Ah, you're with the government out there, are you? You're not feeling particularly hungry.
That's Karen, is it? What a beautiful baby.
The first grandchild. I've been waiting for Maggie to contribute.
And that must be Linda. Your looks again, Mum. Who's the little fellow in the suit?
Oh, that's Linda's Barry. He's done very well for himself. Not tall, like you, of course. You're not married yourself, are you?
Oh, not at all. I'm as free as the wind.
Well, I'm very pleased to hear it. I wouldn't want our Maggie mixed up with anyone married. That happens far too often with young girls nowadays. You remember the Winthrop girl, Elsie? Don't you, Maggie? Used to go to school with our Linda.
A married man?
I'm very much afraid so.
I'm sorry to hear it.
Well, so was Mrs. Winthrop. Especially when his wife tried to set fire to the Winthrops' front door.
I hate to break up the party.
Well, don't.
Mum's exhausted. She's come all the way down from Salford. You are exhausted, aren't you, Mum?
Not really. The wine's perked me up nicely.
Well, I am. I'm going to bed. I've got another hard day tomorrow, this charity sale.
Awful party pooper, your daughter.
Oh, don't I know it? Oh, just another half hour, dear.
Not another minute, Mum.
All right, Mum. You get your beauty sleep.
I'm delighted to have met you, Nick. Oh, and Nick,
Yes, Mum?
look after our Maggie, won't you?
I'll try.
I told you before, get out of my life.
Why? I thought I did rather well. Weren't you pleased?
Pleased? You're a liar, Nick, a con artist and a cheat. And the absolutely unforgivable thing is, my mother likes you.
Yeah, you go straight on down this road and take the third on the left, okay? Thanks. All right.
Mrs. Hardcastle?
Yes?
I'm Bay Glazier. I rang you from Klinsky's.
God. I never thought men from Klinsky's travelled around like that. I expected a roller at least.
Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you.
I suppose you'd better come in.
That's Ted. No doubt about it. That's the way Ted painted. Mm-hmm. He took trouble, you see. Like an old master. He got no patience with people who splash paint about. Bicycled across puddles of crimson lake.
The woman with the pot of flowers, is that you?
Well, you can only see the back of her head, can't you?
The back of a head of dark hair.
Ted died 10 years ago. It's got grey in it now.
Do you remember sitting for it?
Not that picture, no.
Are you sure? I mean, if it's you, you must have been there when he painted it.
Not necessarily. Ted painted me so often, he often said he could do it by heart. There's lots of pictures of me I didn't sit for.
He might have painted it when you weren't there.
Quite easily.
But not after he was dead.
Is that meant to be a joke?
I'm sorry, I have this complaint. IJS. Inappropriate Joke Syndrome. But the chairman of Klinsky's bought this picture with his own money, something quite unheard of, so naturally we've got to find out all we can about it. Its date, for instance.
Oh, I honestly can't remember. It's all so long ago.
I understand. But perhaps you could help us about this. You sent a lot of your husband's pictures to Derricott.
Oh, yes, he had an exhibition.
Including this one.
Not as far as I can remember. I don't go to London anymore, even for the exhibition.
In fact, you can't remember anything about this picture at all.
Not exactly.
Your husband's paintings?
Yes. He always laid them out so neatly. I've kept them like that. I don't know why.
Only because you wanted to remember him. Do you paint at all?
Oh, no, I'd be hopeless.
Ted never gave you lessons?
Not in painting.
You didn't meet at art school?
No, I was studying music, and I wasn't marvellous at that. My mother and father lived in Shenstone. We met when our boats collided in the harbour. I wasn't much of a sailor either.
But your husband was.
Oh, yes, he loved it. Loved it too much, as it turned out. Oh, Ted was a wonderful sailor. I mean, he'd done it since he was a boy. He could just sniff at the wind and discover exactly what it had in mind. He knew there was going to be a bit of a wind that afternoon, but not a gale. I suppose he must just have got it wrong for once. They sent out a helicopter. They found the boat turned over. That's all.
And that's how he died?
Oh, it was a hell of a current out there. Ted was swept away, oh, God knows where. Oh, well. They showed me a body that was washed up months later. Unrecognizable. The sea does strange things. I grieved for Ted, but that object seemed irrelevant somehow. Is there anything else you want to ask?
Thank you. No, I can't think of anything else. Well, I suppose I better get back on the infernal machine.
Do you have to? Oh, come on, it's too late for work. I thought I might lure you down to the pub. Oh, I used to come in here with Ted. He liked to hear me play that dreadful tinny old piano.
You happy?
Oh, yes, we were very happy. Even after he came back from Canada.
Canada?
He had a visiting fellowship at the Madison Institute in Toronto. When he came back, he seemed, well, worried. He stopped painting for months.
That was unusual.
I got the feeling, well, he didn't say much, but I got the distinct feeling something went wrong in Canada. Whatever happened, he didn't lift a brush in the 6 months before he was, before he died.
For God's sake, Liz, come and put some music in our souls. Excuse me, do you mind if we steal Liz away so we can have a sing? So, I mean, we are boring each other to death over
this. Of course not. I was waiting to ask. What sort of music do you sing?
Oh, well, you know. Oh, the old ones. Gershwin, Cole Porter, Juliet
songs with words that mattered.
Allow me to introduce by special request Miss Liz Hardcastle.
Our romance won't end on a sorrowful note. Though by tomorrow you're gone, the story's ended, but as the songwriter wrote, the melody lingers on. They may take you from me, I'll miss your fond caress, but though they take you from me, I'll still possess the way you wear your hat, the way you sip your tea, the way you're
love, but I'll always, always keep the memory of
the way.
Good night.
Where are you going to now?
Well, I'm going to get my gear, and then I'm going back to town, I suppose, back to the smoke.
On that killer vehicle, full to the gills with Shenstone's best bitter. Do you think I want another sudden death? Why don't you come in and sleep it off?
Into your delightful cottage.
What about it?
I can find the way.
Hang on to me.
Delighted. The way you hold your knives. The way you sleep Oh, this country air is getting in my chest. I'm used to bacon and egg and all this attention.
Come back. If you can think of any more questions.
Oh, yeah, just one more. Where's that come from? Pansy, isn't it?
Morning, Lucille.
Mr. Glazier,
I'm rather late.
you will come to my first night at the Baptist Head, won't you?
You got a part?
Yeah. Say you'll come. It's a really interesting play.
I'll do my best. Building blocks of life. As a matter of fact, she was extremely nice.
An extremely nice faker.
Well, perhaps.
What do you mean, perhaps? I've checked up on those plants. I ran the Royal Horticultural Society. Harry Lomax was quite right. The Jolly Joker didn't exist 10 years ago.
No, but it is today. Probably thousands of people have got it in their garden. Not only...
Not only who?
I mean...
You mean not only Mrs. Hardcastle?
Well, yes.
Don't tell me. She had the Jolly Joker in her garden.
But it's not conclusive, not at all. Anyway, she loved her husband. It was very touching to hear her talk about him. I don't think she's been a party to anything. Well, not a forgery.
She obviously charmed the pants off you.
Well, she sang the songs I liked.
She sang to you?
Well, we sang to each other.
You go off to catch a thief, to trick a trickster, to expose a forger, and there you are, singing together.
Well, we had got through quite a quantity of strong ale.
It's a miracle you didn't break your neck driving home in the dark.
Well, she was very considerate about that.
Ben? Where did you spend the night? Not in the late, great Edward Hardcastle's bed. God, I'm furious. I thought you were yearning for me.
What's the point in yearning for someone who lusts after hooray Henrys and Odettonian con artists?
Your Mrs. Hardcastle's obviously the #1 suspect.
She can't paint.
She must know painters. She could get someone to do it for her. She has a connection with Derricott. We've got to find out if she brought him that picture.
Or whoever did. There is another thought.
What?
We could try and find someone who was at the Manderson Institute in Toronto about 10 years ago. What are you doing tonight?
I'm afraid exactly what you are.
Chatterbox. That's all you are. A natural chatterbox. Questions and answers all day and most of the night. What are you doing with those bricks? What's the point of building? Robbing me of my confidence, that's what you're doing. Washing it away on a flood of questions. Words. Drip, drip, drip. Like a Chinese water torture. I build because I have to. I don't build with words. I build with bricks. Bricks are words, do you understand? Stop challenging me. Stop undermining me. Stop talking. I won't listen. I won't. Your voice. Eternal chattering. I can't get away. I can't escape nowhere. All right. I surrender. You can stop it now. You've won. You understand that?
What do you think?
I think we need an enormous drink.
Ah, the man from Klinsky's. Well, I suppose you hated all that, just as you all hated my painting.
I remember you were taking away rather a large canvas.
Yes, done by the wind. And you all preferred some glossy little bit of kitsch by Horrible Art Castle.
I'm Ben Glazier. This is Maggie Perrone, also from Klinsky's. She didn't see your picture.
Wasn't that great? Wasn't that a truly wonderful piece of theater?
Well, I suppose it was interesting.
You seem to have a particular dislike of Edward Hardcastle.
Oh, God, he was such a bore. I was at the Academy School with him, you know.
Really? I don't remember you.
No, as a matter of fact, I used to avoid your lectures on dead painters. I had enough of that, having to watch Hardcastle produce his ghastly little imitations.
Did you see my job?
As little as I could. He was always asking me to go booting with him. Can you believe that? Christ! With all those girls just waiting to be chased at the art school. I mean, can you imagine? Why should I want to go boating with him?
It was so wonderful of you to come.
Yes, it was rather heroic.
Oh, it's very harrowing for us too. Absolutely harrowing. So truthful.
And you were a super audience. Weren't they an absolutely super audience, Lester? Lester played my husband. These are all the top people from Klinsky's. Ben Glazier.
Hi.
And Maggie Perrone.
And Ned Nolly. But I'm not from Klinsky's, God forbid. I'm an artist just like you are. And this is Patty.
Patty Dupre, say you guys, what a great piece of theater.
Oh, we love it. We think it says everything there is to say about male impotence, right?
I wasn't very good tonight. I mean, having all you important people in, I sort of lost concentration.
Lucy has a terrific responsibility. No lines.
Hey, don't worry, Lucy, you were great. I mean, it must be so difficult not saying anything.
That's what Lester says. Anyone can say lines, but if you can do without them, well, it's like swinging on a trapeze without a safety net.
Or riding a motorbike without an engine.
Well, yes. Yes, I suppose.
Hey, you know where I'd like to see this piece of theater? I'd like to see it off Broadway.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's what I'd like to see.
You're really kind. That's really kind of you. I don't know what to say, really. Are you an actress?
No, I'm a painter's friend.
I just thought you might be. I mean, you're so beautiful and...
And what?
Oh, nothing. I mean, what terribly pretty earrings.
Oh, thank you.
This way, Mr. Fanner. Maggie, can I introduce Gary Fanner, who was at the Manderson Institute when Hardcastle came to lecture there?
How do you do?
Nice to meet you.
This is Maggie Perrone, head of Old Masters.
Hey, now, what's all this about? I don't make the kind of stuff that gets sold at Klinsky's. So when Ben called...
We're having a bit of trouble attributing the Hardcastle.
Oh, really? I wouldn't have thought that was hard. I mean, they're all pretty much the same, aren't they? Careful, harmless, respectable, dull. Everything Canadians try not to be.
Was he dull when he came to lecture?
He was meant to teach us painting techniques, but he hadn't got anything to say about the kind of painting I was interested in. I was abstract at the time, terribly abstract. So I began to cut his lectures, just didn't go anymore. Anyway, they got to be embarrassing occasionally.
Why embarrassing?
Well, Toronto students, 10 years ago, their ideas came mainly from America, from New York, I suppose. And they got to find his paintings so old-fashioned. It was a big mistake to bring them over. Some people began to laugh at his work quite openly. Girl students laughed. I think that was what hurt him most of all.
We didn't like the girls laughing.
When he first came over, I was head of the Students' Union. My then girlfriend and I, we took him out a couple of times. We got the idea he was very much married in England. He lived in some quiet little village by the sea somewhere. And I suppose he thought visiting English teachers were jumped on by beautiful, ravenous North American girls. He was going to live like a student.
The sort of student he never was.
Anyway, he was going to lay them end to end. That was his dream. And when he got there, they just laughed at him. And I don't think he even had a glimpse of a pair of student panties.
Well, that's very helpful, Mr. Fanner.
You're not going to put all that stuff in the catalog, are you? It's kind of libelous.
No, don't worry. We're just trying to date the picture. Now, I think we owe you lunch at least. Are you coming, Maggie?
No, I'll catch you up.
It was so good of you to come, but I was terrible. I completely lost concentration. But if you'd like to see it again, I mean, I could easily fix tickets.
Mr. Glazier?
Oh, this gentleman's been waiting to see you.
Do you remember me, Mr. Glazier? I brought in a Calvin primitive, they called it, but you said it wasn't primitive at all.
Ah, yes, sorry.
But I wouldn't leave that carving here. Oh, no. I wouldn't leave a straw doll here for the Feeding the Multitude charity. I wouldn't leave a penny piece for them, Mr. Glazier. I want to tell you something, in confidence, of course. Just a moment, please, sir.
You will come in here.
I worked on a newspaper, The Times of Niranga. I can't go back there now, but I know what little agreements our government has with the Feed the Multitude people. It's no miracle, I can tell you. It's no Feed the 5,000. It's share and share alike with the government so they can flog it on the black market.
Charity doth not behave unseemly, rejoiceth not in iniquity. Charity puffeth not itself up.
Who was this visitor? Someone who doesn't like the government of Naranga?
I don't think the government of Naranga liked him, and he certainly didn't like your charity.
Have you talked to anyone else?
Not yet.
Oh, of course, you understand. You can't get anything done in those sort of countries without greasing a few palms.
Including the palms of the Foreign Secretary.
Christopher Matatu. I believe he has a very expensive tailor. Look here. Ben.
Oh, please, do call me Mr. Glazier.
I know you put in an enormous amount of work into this charity sale. No doubt Feeding the Multitude would like to make a special payment to you in recognition of your services.
Can I have that in writing?
Perhaps better not. We'll just shake hands on it.
I don't think so.
I'm sorry?
I really don't want to get my palm covered in grease.
Don't tell me you're having second thoughts about Pandora. Well, I'm afraid I can't let her go. Derricott's giving me an exhibition.
Is he really? I would have thought you were Roy Derricott's type of artist.
Perhaps he owes you a favour.
A favour? Whatever for?
Well, perhaps because you've been supplying him with Edward Hardcastles ever since that unfortunate boating accident.
Do you think I waste my talent painting Hardcastles? What for?
Money. You haven't made much out of your own work in the last 10 years.
Now, what's Roy Derricott been telling you?
He's told us nothing. He's very protective of his sources of income.
You remember doing this one, I'm sure, and you were getting careless. You painted a plant that didn't exist when Hardcastle was alive. A brand new pansy called the Jolly Joker. The joke you hoped was on Klinsky's.
I don't know anything about plants.
But you know about earrings? Or did you forget it was the back of Patty's head that you were painting? Couldn't you resist doing the earring? Are you such a careful, academic painter? Goldfish with a little diamond eye. Lucy admired it that night at the theatre.
Hardcastle only ever painted his wife.
You know that much about her?
Perhaps those were her earrings.
We asked her. She never wore them.
All right, then. Somebody else.
Who?
I don't know.
Nobody else. You painted Patty. Not from life, of course. She never knew you were painting Hardcastle. She'd have left you if you did. But you were thinking about her. Her head, her neck, her gold earrings.
That's totally ridiculous. I'm not a forger.
No, you're quite right. You're not a forger.
What do you mean? I thought we agreed.
No, we agreed that Edward Hardcastle didn't paint that picture when he was alive. He couldn't have. But we mustn't rule out the possibility that he painted it after he was dead.
So what do we do now? Hold a seance, ask him?
Yes, I think we should ask him.
Ben, for heaven's
No,
sake.
just a minute. Let's think about Edward Hardcastle. An academic painter, married to a very nice wife, lives at the seaside, sells well. Then he goes off to Toronto. He goes off in search of adventure. Mainly girl students who he believes will be swept off their feet by his great talent. But what do? They reject him. They laugh at him and his whole way of painting. So he comes back home, can't lift a brush, bored with his work, and himself and his wife too, I suspect, bored with life. So he decides to commit a murder.
Murder?
Yes, he decides to murder Edward Hardcastle. He arranges to do him in. Death at sea with the body lost away somewhere in the deep. He's been running about in boats since he was a child. Do we really believe that he's going to turn his boat over and drown in a gust of wind? He turned the boat over, oh yes. But somewhere near the shore where he could get away to Australia to become someone else entirely. A different sort of painter. A sort of man who blew his paint across the canvas with a hairdryer. The sort of artist that the beautiful young students of Los Angeles and Chicago and Greenwich Village might be likely to fall for. So he grew a beard, wore tinted spectacles. He put on a bit of weight over the years. But Edward Hardcastle was dead. Long live Ned Nunnally.
Of course you're bloody joking.
No, you're the jolly joker, Ned. It worked out rather well. Your wife got the life insurance and you got a new identity. The only trouble was the Ned Nunnallys didn't sell. So you had to keep on painting Hardcastles. I don't suppose that's any sort of crime.
Now, please, for God's sake, don't tell Patty.
I don't feel bound to tell anyone, not even Liz. I don't suppose she's want to live with Ned Nunnally.
Ned? Oh, hello. It's so good to see you. Can I get you some coffee?
No, thanks, really. We're just calling to, congratulate Ned on his exhibition.
Isn't it great? Pandora's finally going to be thrown open to the public.
Oh, yes, just one thing. You got it wrong about Pandora, Ned. You know what she really kept in a little box? All the evils and ills that affect the world. The man who kept the winds in a bag was airless. He could work up a convenience storm at sea any time. It's thought to let you know. Get rid of them.
What?
Get rid of the feeding of the multitudes. Get rid of Piers Frobisher. Hand the whole business over to Oxfam.
He'll sue us.
I don't think he will.
Anyway, it's nothing whatever to do with you or Maggie. You stick your noses in everywhere. I mean, you've been raising doubts about our Hardcastle. That beautiful painting I bought, Woman with Pansies or whatever it is.
Ah, yes. Maggie and I have thoroughly investigated that picture. We know its entire history.
Well, what's the answer?
Well, what's the answer to my question? Are you going to sack Frobisher of the Itching Palms?
Well, I'll think about it. We can't have any criticism of Klinsky's complete integrity.
Good. They will tell you about the picture you bought.
Don't tell me it's no good.
On the contrary, there's absolutely no doubt it was painted by Edward Hardcastle.
Thank you. Thank you both very much. Well, that's all right then. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Of course, it was entirely right that you made sure of its provenance. Now, I have the Heritage Minister coming at the end of the month. Perhaps you'd both care to join us for lunch. Or shall we say 1 o'clock on the 25th? Would that suit you both?
I'm afraid not.
May one ask why?
I'm taking Maggie to the seaside. We've been invited to a wedding.
Ladies and gentlemen and yachtsmen, Bob Ferris is safe back in harbour after the fastnet. Yes, and with Liz, we hope, Bob, after all this time, that you have found a permanent mooring. And Bob can be relied on, as we know, Liz, to keep a firm hand on your tiller. Will you please raise your glasses and empty them for the happy couple? The happy couple! Right, come on, to the piano. Give us a song. Thank you. Let me just... Thank you, ma'am.
You don't suppose we ought to drop the slightest hint that she's committing bigamy?
Absolutely not.
The way you sing off key, the way you haunt my dreams.